Five people killed in Kaduna as police, that is Nigerian police, and youth clash during coronavirus lockdown. Honestly, this entire lockdown is starting to cause a whole lot of things right now. So many things are happening. So I'm just going to be reading a couple of the tweets. Now, somebody says said that COVID-19 killed 5 in 40 days, while policemen killed 5 in 1 week. Okay, that's getting interesting. Now, can you see how foolish we are? Before the end of COVID-19, Nigerian army and police will be competing with the coronavirus. Now, okay, we're competing with the virus who killed the most. That is very, very sad. Like, I'm laughing, but I mean, it's very, very sad. Now, this is a pretty unfortunate. Okay, this is pretty unfortunate, but why couldn't they just obey the state government directive? The lockdown or sit-at-home thing is for the good of everyone. Okay, now we have sit at home and eat paper. So actually, this one is trying to tell them, like, okay, people have issues. Like, you can't just sit at home, because a lot of people need to make their living every single day. They need to go outside and earn their living every single day. So a whole bunch of all these things. Now I'm just going to be putting a summary over this entire thing. You can read through the tweets as I'm scrolling up. Now a whole bunch of all these tweets have something in common. Now it's falling on the side of people complaining. I think most of the replies on the tweets are actually complaining about what the Nigerian army and the Nigerian police have been doing during this period. People killed in Delta State and all around. So it's a very serious problem. We all know that Nigerian security forces have problems with human rights abuses. Like, that has been the way things have always been in Nigeria. The police force, the army, whatever they are, they have always had these serious human rights abuses problems. So it's not a surprise to anyone. But what I'm just trying to say is that most of the replies on this tweet, most of them are about complaining about that, while the other parts, I mean, there are some people actually supporting the military and the police in this kind of thing, in this kind of attitude. Some are actually supporting it. Oh Jesus! Some are really supporting it. Some are saying that, why don't you just sit down at your house? And some are even saying that that you even got mercy. That it was a lot and less than what you would have gotten. Someone actually quoted Duterte, that's the president of the Philippines, talking about shooting people that violate all that and the lockdown. So if you violate the lockdown, the military is going to shoot you down. Like, it's like the president actually allowed it in the Philippines, and he's quoting that as an example. I mean, that guy is an absolute authoritarian, Duterte. Now you're saying we have a whole lot of issues with the security forces in Nigeria, and you're actually stating that and saying that that should be applied in Nigeria, that we're actually lucky that that didn't happen to us here. What sort of nonsense is that? People, like, I don't understand how Nigerians behave this way. Like, it's like we have been conditioned so much that this being oppressed has become our mentality, and we don't have a way of freeing ourselves from it. We have been oppressed so much for so long, for many decades, through the military era, and even in the civilian era, it's almost the same thing. We have been oppressed so much that we are actually demanding for it. We're actually demanding for it. We're actually in awe of the oppression that the ruling class are imposing over the working class and the entire member of the population. So we're actually embracing that sort of mentality. You have people talking about, like, if anybody should go outside, the government should enforce it so hard and make sure that people get shot, or people, they should beat the hell out of them if they should go outside. Now, I understand that if people are going outside, they're actually putting other people in risk. That is true. You are going to be putting other people in risk, not necessarily because you're going outside, but because you might mix up with other people. I understand that, perfectly understand that. Now, even if you're going to be talking about imposing some sanctions, I still get that, but shooting them dead, that's like starting from 0 and just shooting up to 100. Like, there are gradations on this entire thing. You don't necessarily have to choose between shooting people and not shooting people, or having to choose between enforcing the lockdown and shooting people. There are a lot of activities, there are a lot of things you can do, a lot of measures you can actually carry out in between those two extremes, for God's sake. We really need to figure out how to address things in this country. There are other places where they have to use rubber bullets or tear gas, all sorts of things like that to disperse people. Why do you have to use gunshots, for God's sake? If you're trying to, like one of the things people are mentioning here, you're trying to protect them from mixing around and killing other people, and the only thing you can do about it is actually killing them. So you are protecting them from getting killed by killing them. What sort of mentality is that? That's absolutely backwards. The logic is completely ludicrous. I don't understand how our military forces and our security forces really risen in Nigeria. And I think one of the major reasons is because most of the people, I'm not trying to rag on anybody in the military or trying to rag on anybody in the police force, but most of the people that get recruited in that force or in those forces, yeah, most of them don't really know much about what they are doing. Most of them are not well trained. Most of these people don't really know so much about the law. They don't know so much about the constitution. They don't know so much about the fundamental rights of these people in the nation. They don't know so much about the rights of Nigerians like that. They don't know so much about those ones. All these recruit people, they don't really care about that. So that's why they don't really care about shooting you dead. They think it's justified, for God's sake. And it's one of the reasons why I've always complained about having the police force moving around with AK-47 in Nigeria, moving around with assault rifles, for God's sake. Why do you need assault rifles with the police force? You look at all the developed countries and even some other African nations, you don't necessarily have to have assault rifles. I mean, fully automatic rifles with the police force, for God's sake. Normal patrols, normal things that they're doing. They're not even fighting criminals at the very moment. They're not fighting criminals with big, huge guns, because I understand that's what most people are going to start saying, that most of the criminals you have to face have big guns, have automatic rifles and stuff. But for the most part, you're just patrolling, for God's sake. People in the nation have their rights, for God's sake. You moving around with assault rifles while the entire populace is completely armless. We don't have any way to defend ourselves or anything. That's why it's so easy for them to shoot down people. Because they know that there's nothing, nobody's going to do anything about it. It's very hard for anybody to fight back because we don't have arms. We don't have any ammunition with us for the citizens. For the most part, nobody has anything like that. We are not like the United States, where people still have guns and they can fight for themselves under some circumstances. So that's one of the problems. Why do these people need AK-47, for God's sake? Just give them tear gas and canister. Let them shoot tear gas at people, no problem. Let them use pepper spray, no problem. Let them use hot water, spray the people or whatever. There are so many things you can actually use than using, for God's sake, shooting them down. It's a dystopian kind of vision. It's a dystopian thing happening in our nation. It's very sad. It's very sad. That's the kind of thing that communist nations would do. Kind of thing that terrorist states would do, like things that Iran would do, that things that they would do in Iraq, things that they would do in Afghanistan, things that they would do in all those terrible places. North Korea. Why do we have to apply those measures that those crazy nations are using, for God's sake? We need to really fix our nation. We really need to fix our nation. People are not going outside. People are going outside when they shouldn't be going outside. They're putting other people at risk, and then the next thing you have to do is to shoot them down. It's very sad. Honestly, it's very sad. So that's what I'm just going to be mentioning about this. Honestly. Anyways, I know you guys all understand this. We are in Nigeria, so we all get it. But that doesn't mean that we have to become numb to this thing. We don't have to get used to it. I understand that has been the norm. That is the situation we find ourselves in Nigeria. But we should never get completely numb to this thing. It should not be. No matter what the situation is, no matter what you are facing right now, it should not be. And that's the circumstance. It should not be. No matter what, we have to figure out a way to fix this problem in our nation. It has become the new normal. It has become ordinary. People don't even see it as a big deal anymore. The government, they don't even see it as a big deal. They don't even investigate most of all these massacres anymore. For most people that talk about DWB, that's driving while black, that's a phenomenon in the United States that black people complain about, that you might get pulled up by the police officer simply because you're black and stuff like that. There are so many controversies over that, but I'm not going to be going into that right now. Things like that. Yes, you can be talking about that place. They are overwhelmingly white. 70% of the people in the United States are white. In many other European countries, most people are white, so no problem. It's bad if there's racism, but you can still understand that. But here in Nigeria, we're all blacks here, and we're doing this to ourselves. It's just sad. Anyways, I'll be seeing you guys in the next video.